Hello and welcome to my YouTube. This YouTube is remembering the year 1970. I was 26 years old in 1970. I had left the Navy in 1969 and returned to college, attending Phillips University in Oklahoma. Richard Nixon was president in 1970. The Vietnam War had been raging for 6 years and would not end until 1973. On March 5th, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty goes into effect after ratification by 56 nations. On March 31st, Japan Airlines Flight 351 from Tokyo is hijacked by the Japanese Red Army. All passengers and crews are eventually freed. On April 10th, in a press release, Paul McCartney announces that he has left the Beatles. On April 13th, an oxygen tank in the Apollo 13 spacecraft explodes, forcing the crew to abort the mission and return in 4 days. And the most famous line from this disaster, "Houston, we have a problem." On May 4th, at Kent State University, there was a shooting and 4 students are killed and 9 wounded by the Ohio National Guardsmen at a protest against the U.S. incursion into Cambodia. There were dozens of pictures taken, but this is the most famous picture of the Kent State shootings. This girl screaming over the body of one of her friends. And Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young released a song about this shooting a few months later, and it was titled Ohio. And it has this haunting line, "4 dead in Ohio, 4 dead in Ohio." On May 11th, the Lubbock tornado, a strong F5, which is the most powerful of all tornadoes, hits Lubbock, Texas after dark, resulting in 26 fatalities and over 1,500 people were injured. Remember, back in 1970, we didn't have the Weather Channel. We didn't have CNN broadcasting 24 hours a day. We had to rely upon our local weather forecasting. In the second day of violent anti-war demonstrations at Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi, state law enforcement officers fire into the demonstrators, killing 2 and injuring 12. On July 1st, Xerox PARC Computer Laboratory opens in Palo Alto, California. I mention this because this has some personal significance to me. So Xerox invited this guy from a little computer company called Apple to come and visit. And that guy was Steve Jobs, who eventually became my boss. And Steve saw the graphic user interface for the first time, and he saw something called a mouse attached to the computer. Well, Xerox didn't do anything with the mouse, but Steve Jobs did. And in 1983, Apple released the Lisa computer with a mouse. Now, the reason I mention all of this is because I spent 30 years of my life working for Apple Computer. On July 12th, Thor Heyerdahl's papyrus boat, the Ra 2, arrives in Barbados from Africa. He was famous because he drifted clear across the Pacific in a papyrus boat, and now he drifted from Africa into Barbados. On July 21st, the Aswan High Dam is completed in Egypt. On July 30th, the thalidomide scandal. Damages totaling $26 million are awarded to 2,000 thalidomide victims in the United Kingdom. Thalidomide was a drug that was given to pregnant women, and it caused these terrible birth defects, some of which you see here. About 40% of the children died within a month or two after being born. There were over 4,000 victims altogether. Fortunately, thalidomide was never sold in the United States because there was a woman in the Food and Drug Administration that blocked it from ever being sold in this country. On September 18th, Jimi Hendrix, the American rock musician, dies from overdose. He was 27 years old. On September 20th, the Luna 16 lands on the moon and lifts off the next day with samples, landing back on Earth on September 24th. So we finally had some moon rocks here on Earth. On October 2nd, the Wichita State University football team's plane crashes in Colorado, killing most of the players. They were on their way to a game with Utah State University. This was a huge story. On October 4th, American rock singer Janis Joplin is found dead from an overdose. She was also 27. On October 12th, President Richard Nixon announces that the United States will withdraw 40,000 more troops before Christmas. On October 25th, the wreck of the Confederate submarine Hunley is found off of Charleston, South Carolina. Hunley is the first submarine in history to sink a ship in warfare. It was a two-man crew in this, and it sank a Union warship. And this is what it actually looks like when they brought it up. On November 14th, Southern Airways Flight 932 crashes in West Virginia. All 75 on board, including 37 players and 5 coaches from the Marshall University football team, are killed. So here's the second football team that is tragically killed in an airline crash. On November 16th, the Lockheed L-1011 TriStar flies for the first time. On December 2nd, the United States Environmental Protection Agency is established by Richard Nixon. On December 12th, a landslide in western Colorado kills 200 people. On the last day of the year, December 31st, Paul McCartney sues in Britain to dissolve the Beatles' legal partnership. So this is the end of the Beatles. Who was born in 1970? Queen Latifah, rapper, singer, actress. The wife of President Trump, Melania Trump. The actor Ethan Hawke. The actress Uma Thurman, best known for Pulp Fiction and Kill Bill. The supermodel Naomi Campbell. There were eventually 6 women named as supermodels. The very fine comedian Tina Fey, famous for Saturday Night Live and 30 Rock. The fabulous singer Mariah Carey. The very fine actor Matt Damon. The senator from Texas, Ted Cruz, who also ran for president. The average annual salary was $9,400 in 1940. In today's dollars, that would have been $76,483. How does that stack up against the real annual salaries? Well, it depends on what state you live in. If you live in Mississippi, the average annual salary right now is $47,000. But if you live in New York State, their average salary is $78,000. By the way, this is May of 2025 that I'm recording this. A new car in 1970 cost $3,542. In today's dollars, that would be a $28,819 car. What does a real average car cost today? $49,000, and that was April of 2025, just a few days ago. A gallon of gasoline cost 36 cents in 1970. In today's dollars, that's $2.93. The actual average price of gas right now is $3.14. So that'd be a pretty good price for gas. A new home in 1970 cost $23,450 for a modest 2-3 bedroom home. 2-bedroom probably. In today's dollars, that's $190,800. So what does an average new home really cost in the United States today? $403,000 is the actual average price of a new home in March 2025, according to government figures. A movie ticket cost $1.35 back then. In our dollars, that would be a $10.98 movie ticket. So what were some of the favorite toys back in 1970? You old-timers will remember some of these. Hot Wheels. Oh, little boys love to collect Hot Wheels. My next-door neighbor, who's in his mid-50s, has dozens and dozens of Hot Wheels. G.I. Joe. Oh, the Barbie's Dream House. I mean, what little girl wouldn't love to have Barbie sitting in something like that? Etch-a-Sketch. I've spent many an hours fiddling around with this thing. The Ouija board. This gave a lot of people the creeps, because what you would do is 2 or 3 or 4 of you would sit around this board, and you'd take your fingers and you'd lightly place them on the board. And then you would ask the Ouija board a question about, something about the future. You know, Ouija board, will I find my true love? and you all put your fingers on here very lightly, and then this thing would start moving around, and it would spell out words, or it would give you numbers, and it creeped a lot of people out. So what was introduced in 1970? Irish Spring Soap came out that year. Glue sticks were first introduced in 1970. The Edge shaving gel, the first of the gels, came out that year. Corelle dishes. I have a set of Corelle dishes. These things last forever and ever and ever. They're not indestructible, but darn near. I mean, you just never break them. They just don't chip. Amazing. And they're not expensive. Corelle dishes. IBM got into the copier business in 1970. They didn't stay in it more than 2 or 3 years, but here was the first one, 1970. We got our very first home VCRs from Philips. It was introduced in 1970, and people began recording their favorite TV shows on tape. Hamburger Helper. That came out in 1970. The Gremlin car was introduced and only lasted a couple of years, but here it is. The voting age was lowered from 21 to 18. So now you had high school seniors able to vote. What were the top TV shows of 1970? Number 1, Marcus Welby, MD, starring Robert Young and James Brolin. Number 2, The Flip Wilson Show. Very funny comedian. Number 3, Here's Lucy. Lucille Ball was on television for years and years and years. This is interesting. Her guests that evening were Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. Ironside, starring Raymond Burr. And Gunsmoke. Gunsmoke ran from 1955 to 1975. What were the 5 top songs of 1970? This is based upon radio play, jukebox plays, and record sales. They have a formula that calculates what the top songs were. So here they are. Number 1, Bridge Over Troubled Water by Simon and Garfunkel. Number 2, Close to You by The Carpenters. Number 3, American Woman by the Guess Who. Number 4, Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head by B.J. Thomas. And I think one of the reasons this song was as popular as it was is because there was a really popular movie, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And in that movie, Paul Newman rides Catherine Ross around on a bicycle. And as this scene is playing, they're playing the song Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. So if you went to this movie, you heard this song in a very memorable scene. War, Edwin Starr. So who were the top singers of 1970? Elton John. And once again, this is based upon radio plays, records sold, jukebox plays. There are formulas that they calculate and rank these. And Elton John came in number 1. Number 2, Paul McCartney. Number 3, the Bee Gees. Number 4, the Carpenters. Number 5, the Jackson 5. Don't you love those outfits? So, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something about 1970 that you didn't know. Be well.